And the question is, more transparency always, from my perspective, is better. Is just better for all of us, better for the trial, and better for society. But let's see what our experts think tonight. We've got an incredible think tank joining us tonight. Let me introduce our guests. All right, we begin. Rick King, trial attorney, former police lieutenant, joining us from West Palm Beach, Florida. Oh, who's below me down there? Oh, yes, he's back. Kirk Nurmi, you know him, represented Jodi Arias, but trust me, folks, hates her more than you do. He's also the author of his newest book, Trapped with Ms. Arias, Parts 2 and 3, My Final Words. Okay, well, hopefully those aren't his final words, because we want to hear from him tonight. He, of course, joining us in Arizona. And also with us, Lara Uretzian, criminal defense attorney in L.A., who once represented a man named Peterson. Which Peterson? You'll have to figure out yourself, folks. All right, great to have everyone here. Kirk, let me start with you. High-profile case you were involved in, right? Super high profile. There was a lot of information out there earlier. Here, the defendants, who happen to be police officers, want these videos released. Why would they not be released? Isn't the whole point of not releasing them to protect the Sixth Amendment rights of criminal defendants?
Yeah, Vinny, you're right. I mean, the direction would be the protection of the right to a fair trial, the defendants wanting to have a fair trial. And here, for reasons we don't know, that we're not privy to, maybe perhaps because we haven't seen the video, that the judge is holding back this tape. And it's hard to imagine, is the state arguing that they would be prejudiced in their case? It's hard to understand who is calling for the continued sealing of this tape. And maybe it goes back to some of what you said in the lead-in regarding maybe the fact that this is more than just a case. Who knows what we're going to see on that tape?
Yeah, Lara, when I think about high-profile cases, you're in the middle of one as well. A lot of times it's the defendant says, listen, it's going to be tough enough to get a fair trial, but if you let that information out ahead of time and a potential juror sees it, we're never going to. I mean, everyone in America has seen these videos that have transformed our country, have transformed law enforcement, have transformed cities from coast to coast. It's not just about Minneapolis, it's about the entire country. Your thoughts about releasing these body cams that tell another part of the story that we haven't seen yet? What was the interaction like? What were people saying? What led up to this? How were the officers acting? How was George Floyd acting? None of that is known at this point.
Yes, but we have seen the worst part of it, right? The first video obviously started an entire, you had protests, thousands of people all over the nation, all over the world protesting because of the first video, which was horrific at the least. And it pretty much got everyone to believe that these officers were guilty. Now these videos, if it's starting to sound like the defendants and their attorneys are saying release them, they must be videos or tapes that are very helpful to them. It sounds like they show maybe Lang talking to a senior officer and trying to convince him to maybe ease up a little bit, to turn Floyd so he can breathe. So maybe there's more there that we need to know. And I say just release it. Since we already have the initial video out there, might as well release it. My guess is that the prosecution doesn't want that out there, because it doesn't help.
All right, Rick, you're in a very unique. Sure, Rick, you're in a unique position here. You're an attorney, but you're also a former police lieutenant. We've got police as defendants in this case. They want the public to see the body cam footage. What does that tell you?
So, Vinny, first, let me start by saying that not only was I a police lieutenant, for the majority of my legal career, I represented police officers for the police union. And so what I can tell you is in many of these cases, the police officers always want their body cam released, because what we generally say is what you've captured is a split second in time where someone who walked up in the middle of something took a video. The body cam video shows you how it started and how we got to where we are at that moment. So it's not odd to me that the police officers are asking for it to be released. I'm guessing that it's the prosecution that doesn't want to release at this time, citing the exception to the public records laws to talk about not releasing videos in open cases. However, I can understand why Mr. Lane's lawyer released that with a motion to dismiss, because I was able to read some of the transcripts of it, and you clearly, Lane, on 2 separate occasions, said, "Hey, shouldn't we roll this guy over?" And he was dismissed by Mr. Chauvin.
You know, Kirk, when I think about this case, and I mean, all of us were impacted by watching the video. I have not been able to get a guest on the show that would defend the actions of Derek Chauvin. It just hasn't happened. I mean, I've criminal defense attorneys, what, like 15 a week on, and I can't get one to defend the actions. Do you think there could be anything on those body cam videos that could change people's minds about what happened to George Floyd?
Well, Vinny, I'm not going to be that one. You didn't find it in me. I don't think so, because one of the things that's pretty clear when we hear the report about this is how many times George Floyd said he couldn't breathe and said that he was going to die and knew that he was going to die. Likewise, you know, some of your other guests pointed out that, well, Mr. Lane wanted him to be rolled over, and that's why that assertion was made to release the tape in the motion to dismiss the charges against him. Mr. Lane was there holding his legs. He knew exactly what was going on. None of these officers really, to me, have a defensible argument for any charges that are brought against them related to this death. They were all there. They were all contributing, period.
If I may?
When we come back. What's that?
I said, if I may, if I can respond to that for a quick second. With all due respect, a police officer who has 4 days in the job doesn't have the authority to override Mr. Chauvin. He was a rookie cop. He had 4 shifts. And that's why they released it, because his even attempts at trying to get Mr. Chauvin to release him, and anyone who's ever been in the rookie car, been in the FTO car and been a rookie, know they tell you, shut up and do what I say. And that's it. And that's the authority that you have as that officer.
But
maybe
Mr. King,
maybe
that's
it's time
the
for
problem.
that to change.
Maybe that's the problem, Mr. King.
Exactly. Maybe it's time for that to change, and a rookie cop should be able to jump in as a human being. Forget about being a cop. When they see someone's dying, it doesn't matter at that point if you've got a job on the line, if you've got a supervisor telling you not to do it. As a human being, you jump in and say, hey, you're doing the wrong thing. We have to man up. We're past the point where we just say, yeah, you're my supervisor, then I have to follow you and defer to you. I think the culture has to change.
I don't know if you read the transcripts or not, but what he said to him, he's like, hey, shouldn't we roll him over? I'm scared of excited delirium or whatever else he might have said at that time. And Mr. Chauvin said, no, that's why we have him in this position. Chauvin's a 19-year cop. Chauvin's got more time driving backwards than that guy has driving forwards. He tells him what to do, and that's what he does. He doesn't know any better. He knows the senior officer said, no, he's fine right here. That's why we got him here. That's why he's in this position. And
so if a senior officer tells him kill somebody, then he just kills somebody. He doesn't have a mind of his own. That's what I'm arguing. What I'm saying is he's got to have a mind of his own. It doesn't matter if he's a 4-day rookie. He knows that something is wrong. Someone's dying. And all they had to do was roll the guy over and ease up on the pressure on his neck or move away from his neck. That's all they had to do. I understand what you're saying. I get it, but I don't agree with it.
Yeah, Mr. King, you know, respectfully, what you seem to be advocating for is following the thin blue line. And officers
Absolutely
don't,
not.
even if they have 19 years on the job, they don't have a right to terrorize the citizenry. And that's what Officer Chauvin was doing at that point in time.
I'm not defending Officer Chauvin's behavior. What I'm suggesting to you is that there's a different perspective from when you have 4 days on the job and your ability to communicate what you think should happen to a 19-year veteran. That's what I'm communicating. And I'm suggesting that Mr. Lane's attorney properly filed a motion to dismiss in his case because he tried to do what he could do in that position. And that's what I'm saying.
All right, we're going to talk more about this case later on in the hour. We're going to hear from the 13th juror. So we'll finish this conversation when we come back. A case that starts as a simple TikTok video ends up with a couple dismembered in a suitcase. We'll be right back.
9.
A lot of people are TikToking. A lot of TikTokers out there. You know, teenagers making videos on the TikTok app. Well, that was happening in Seattle. Not an unusual scenario, but it got very gruesome and very horrifying very quickly when the TikTokers discovered a suitcase filled with remains. Chanley Painter has the story.
They were found in suitcases washed up on Alki Beach.
It started with people making an unusual discovery while recording this TikTok video near a West Seattle beach. When they opened it, the smell was overwhelming. They called 911. Police confirmed human remains were found in the suitcase and in several other bags they found near the water last month. The bodies were identified as 27-year-old Austin Winter, who died of a gunshot wound to the torso, and his 36-year-old girlfriend Jessica Lewis, who died from multiple gunshot wounds.
They were chopped up and put in suitcases.
The family had just seen the couple recently and thought all was well till they received the gruesome news.
And we're still in shock. We're still completely in shock and heartbroken and angry and just in disbelief. It's unreal. We're broken.
Lewis's aunt has set up a GoFundMe page to raise reward money to help find the couple's killer.
No one's been arrested yet. And somebody needs to be held accountable for this. It's heinous. Somebody knows something, and as a reward, whatever the money is generated for on the GoFundMe page goes to as a reward to whoever can help lead to the arrest.
Lewis's aunt wants her niece to be remembered for her kindness.
She helped work at my mom's adult family home, and so she was a caregiver and worked closely with my mom with the developmentally disabled people. And it takes a big heart to be able to do that.
The family is hoping the positive memories will help to fade the violent images of their deaths recorded by these bystanders.
He and Jessica loved each other very much. They stuck through things through thick and thin, and they never left each other, and they were a team.
Tragic story and bizarre circumstances. Let's bring back in our think tank. Rick King, let me start with you on this one. Shot, dismembered, in suitcases, tossed in the water, then the remains wash up. What does that tell you, if anything, about what happened to this couple?
You could make some inferences that maybe, I've heard stories that people thought maybe they were making a statement. I think it's difficult to tell at this time until you have some evidence as to the origin of where that suitcase was thrown into the water, or some sort of story as to how this thing happened. It's hard to put that into context. It's just a terrible situation.
Kirk, this is going to be absolutely horrifying. And I guess, Kirk, you really got to dive into the lives of the victims to find out who they were interacting with and what they were doing, why anyone would want to do something so horrible to a couple.
You're right, Vinny, and I understand there was a missing persons report filed a while back, and I'm sure they're going to be following up on that, looking at those things again to try to discern where they were they last seen, who would have wanted to do something like this, what was the point of this crime, and what was how did these people stumble upon it, this gruesome thing. So there's going to be all kinds of things that are going to be looked at around there, but most prominently, like was just said, looking at before. What were these people doing? What kind of actions could have motivate anybody to do anything remotely like this?
Let's take a listen to one of the victim's aunts talking about what exactly was going on in the lives of her niece and her boyfriend.
I spoke to her father, and everything was normal. That's the whole thing, is they weren't missing. Everything was as normal as can be. I mean, there's nothing different I've talked to mutual friends and family and who'd seen them, and nothing struck them as different. Everything seemed, just like everyday normal.
Yeah, Lara, that makes this even more of a head scratch. Sometimes something like this, you might say, okay, we know that they were, hanging around certain people or got involved in something, but everything seemed very, very normal here. The high-profile nature of this and the connection to TikTok has really had that GoFundMe go way up for reward money. Do you think money in a case like this might be an incentive to get someone to talk?
Money is always an incentive for anyone to talk. I'm sure it's going to help for someone to come forward and say what's happened. I mean, the aunt described their lives as normal, like the everyday, but I'm just curious, what is normal to the aunt? What is normal for this couple? Is there something out of the ordinary for this particular couple? Or was this maybe a random killing? I mean, it could be anything. So I'm hoping that with money as an incentive out there, somebody will come forward, somebody will point a finger at an individual or a group or a team or whoever it is, and maybe we can get this solved. I'm sure more information is going to be forthcoming soon. I'm sure the law enforcement agencies involved are looking everywhere, talking to a lot of people, doing everything within their power. And there may be leads. Maybe they're just keeping all that information close to themselves and under wraps until they can crack the case.
And when we come back, we're going to take a look at the tragic story of Fort Hood soldier Vanessa Guillen. Her family feeling a lot of emotions, heartbreak, frustration, some anger. But at the end of the day, they want something more. They want there to be something positive to come out of the horrific murder of this heroic soldier. That story next.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julia Janae. This is your legal news break starting tonight in Atlanta, where the suspect in a shooting death of an 8-year-old girl has surrendered. This afternoon, 19-year-old Julian Conley turned himself in to the Atlanta Police Department. This after authorities identified him as the person of interest and issued a warrant in the death of Secoria Turner. 8-year-old Secoria was riding in her mother's car the night of July 4th. Her mother says they tried to enter a barricaded parking lot to turn around when gunfire struck the car and Secoria. She died at the hospital. Her memorial service was today. The suspect, through his lawyer, admits to being armed and in the area, but claims he was a witness to the crime and not the shooter. And some good news from the Supreme Court. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has been discharged from the hospital and is doing well. We told you yesterday about the 87-year-old justice being treated for fever, chills, and a possible infection. A court spokesperson confirms she is now home after 2 nights under the care of doctors. Justice Ginsburg is the oldest Supreme Court justice and a 4-time cancer survivor. And a woman who blasted a Starbucks barista for making her wear a mask says she wants to now sue that employee for his GoFundMe money. Amber Gillens told our affiliate KGTV in San Diego that it started with this post she put on social media saying the server refused to take her order because she wasn't wearing a mask. She says her reason is due to a medical condition. That post got a lot of interest and led strangers to donate over $100,000 to the barista. Gillen says she deserves half of those funds and is trying to find a lawyer to help her do it.
No, absolutely not. I feel like I need the apology. I've been discriminated against. I'm the one who's sick.
Gillens told our affiliate she has asthma and had a doctor's note from a chiropractor saying she should be exempt from covering her face. In the meantime, she's created her own GoFundMe page, but it hasn't been quite as profitable. That's it for your Court TV legal news break. Vinny, back to you.
When Ruth Bader Ginsburg gets sick, I don't worry because I know she's coming back. That's just she is such a fighter, so resilient, really amazing. Quick recovery again.
Right. She goes in and gets treated and seems to come out and is always resting well at home a couple of days later, but it can be a little scary to hear it, that she is being hospitalized again.
Yeah. Good news. All right. Good news that she's back home. Thank you so much, Julia Janae. All right. Soldiers. They volunteer to serve their country. Volunteer to do it. So it would seem that we, and I say we because it's our, they're our people, they're our soldiers, that we have an obligation to protect them, to keep them safe, to do whatever we need to do to protect our soldiers. And it didn't happen to soldier Vanessa Guillen. And she's dead now. Her family's angry. They're heartbroken at the same time. It's a story we've been covering and continue to cover here on Court TV. But now the family is taking it a step further, and they want to make sure that something positive can come out of the death of Vanessa Guillen. Ted Rollins has the story.
The barbaric murder of 20-year-old Army soldier Vanessa Guillen, which touched millions of people around the world, may end up permanently changing the way the military deals with sexual harassment.
For her lacks of responsibility, safety, and respect, because they didn't respect my sister.
Investigators say Vanessa Guillen was bludgeoned to death with a hammer in an armory room at Fort Hood, Texas by Aaron Robinson, a fellow soldier who later committed suicide. According to the Guillen family, in the weeks leading up to her murder, Vanessa complained about Robinson, saying he was sexually harassing her at work. Fearing retribution because of the current reporting system in place, Vanessa's family said she did not come forward to complain. Vanessa's story has prompted dozens of others to come forward sharing their own military harassment stories using hashtag #IamVanessaGuillen.
We stand here for Vanessa. We stand here for justice. We stand here for every other service member who's experienced sexual harassment or assault and did not feel safe reporting it out of fear of retaliation.
Vanessa's story has attracted the attention of lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. Some, like Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, who served in the Army for 17 years, are demanding transparency into the investigation of Vanessa's death and an evaluation of the way the military handles sexual harassment allegations. Later this month, President Trump plans to meet with the Guillen family.
I saw that on the news the other day, and I thought it was terrible, and I gave specifically orders. I want to know everything about it. I thought it was horrible. I thought it was absolutely horrible.
I'm interested in getting justice for Vanessa, and that will require everybody, all hands on deck, to get this happen.
Natalie Kwam is the Guillen family attorney. She's helping to draft a bill that would require a third party to investigate sexual harassment complaints and allow members of the military to sue the government the same way a civilian can. The goal, give service members a way to safely report sexual harassment and ensure that Vanessa Guillen did not die in vain.
The system failed her, and the only way that we can actually feel like we've done justice for Vanessa is to make sure this never happens again to another soldier. It's unfortunate that had to be her blood, but at this point, we can look at this as an opportunity for change.
Have to protect our soldiers. Have to. Bottom line. Let's bring back in our think tank. Kirk Nurmi, you know what really bothers me here is the way things are right now. It seems that the victims are deterred from doing anything because they're afraid of what's going to happen to them, when the way it should be is that the people who are engaging in this behavior and the people who are enabling it should be deterred from doing that. And there has to be a way to bring in a third party to oversee all of this so it ends. It's got to end.
Well, you're right, Vinny. I agree with the Aguilar family attorney talking about a third-party independent investigation. It's kind of like civilian oversight for the police department, right? Ultimately, the military, like you brought up earlier, serves all of us. They serve the citizens and protect this country. And you're right, somebody like Miss Guillen, young, going into the Army, ready to dedicate some of her life to it, shouldn't have to face sexual harassment or certainly any fear of reporting sexual harassment if it takes place. And obviously we can see here she was right to fear that because this was a clear motive. Somebody must have been so concerned, it seems, about what she was going to report that they were willing to kill her in order to keep those things silent. And if she had a safe place to go and report beforehand, didn't have that kind of hesitation she expressed to her family, we wouldn't be in this situation right now. Miss Guillen would more than likely still be alive.
All right, everyone watching at home, take note what just happened. Vinnie Politan, Kirk Nurmi agreeing 100%, okay? 100%, we are in agreement. That doesn't happen. That tells me a lot about this issue. Rick King, how do you see it? I mean, to me, one of the points of a lot of the laws we have out there is to deter behavior, because I know if I do something, I'm going to be in trouble. Well, I don't think the people who are enabling and engaging in this behavior right now are deterred at all. It's the victims that are. We got to change this.
Yeah, I'm also in agreement with you. And I think over the years, we've heard all these stories about terrible stories coming out of things that are happening to our soldiers. And I think there is time for some sort of change where there's an independent oversight, an independent place where someone can go and report these activities and have that investigated outside of what's been going on with the military up to date. It's a tragedy what's happened to this young soldier.
Yeah, it's sad, Lara, that we have to have this conversation. I'm not familiar with the Army. I'm not as brave as Vanessa Guillen. I didn't sign up. I didn't volunteer for that duty. But when our soldiers do volunteer, the least the Army could do is to make sure they are protected.
I agree. That's a no-brainer. I mean, these are our soldiers. We love our soldiers. They put their lives on the line for us in protecting our interests, the national interests, national security. So the one thing that I would expect is that same soldier should be able to report when she's the victim of, he or she, whoever it is, being abused or is the victim of sexual harassment. There's got to be a system. The entire culture needs to change. The military, it's not just about oversight. They also have to be retrained. Someone has to go in on the inside and retrain, re-educate, and change things from the inside. I mean, the oversight, a third party from the outside would obviously be super helpful, but we owe it to our soldiers. We owe it to Vanessa Guillen to change things. It's time.
Absolutely. All right, enough with the agreement. When we come back, we're going to talk about the release of the body cam footage from the death of George Floyd. The judge will not release it. The defendants, the former officers, want it released. What do you think, the 13th juror? Your verdict next.
It's going to be a much closer look at what happened, because just from the vantage point, the bystander videos that we've seen, the security camera videos, were all taken from some distance. These are right up close and personal with George Floyd and the officers, and they do give us a bit more detail about what happened. Just one of the things they do is they capture a lot of the emotion going on there. It's you can see much more graphically than we could before just how frightened George Floyd was, how agitated he was, how panicked he was. And you also pick up on, the yelling of the police officers when they're trying to get him into the car. You're hearing the bystanders yelling that he's not breathing. You should check his pulse. You're picking up on details like that that were not as clear from the bystander video that we've all seen.
That's Steve Karnowski, a reporter from the Associated Press, spoke to earlier tonight, and he was one of the few reporters who was on the ground in Hennepin County today and was able to view the body cam footage from the day George Floyd died. And that's because the body cam footage is not being released publicly. It's not. So I posted on social media today asking if you think it should be, and if it was, is there potentially anything you could see that could change your mind about the case? We begin with our 13th juror comment of the day from Susie tonight, who writes, seems that hiding it from the public means that there must be something in the videos that would change the entire picture of the situation. Kirk Nurmi, let me ask you, one of the things that's come out through the transcripts that I've read and from the reporting today is that George Floyd does talk about not being able to breathe several times before he's ever on the ground. How is that going to play at the trial? What does that fact do at the trial when George Floyd's talking about, I can't breathe when he's in the back of the squad car. I can't breathe before he's ever put onto the ground.
The way I see it, it reinforces Officer Chauvin's or former Officer Chauvin's, Mr. Chauvin's indifference to human life. He knew what he was doing by leaving his knee there. He was urged by Officer Lane, the rookie officer, to flip him over because of the concerns he had. It just shows a direct indifference that Officer Chauvin had towards this individual. It's crystal clear to me.
Judy writes tonight, I think if the videos were released, it would just lead to more unrest. The video we did see was horrific and tragic. The events leading up to Mr. Floyd's death would not lessen the fact that a man died that day. Rick King, let me ask you, do you think there's a potential that if another set of videos was released, that we would have more unrest in the streets of America?
You can't tell, because right now, without seeing the videos, it's hard to make that assessment. I mean, I don't think that I don't know the protests have actually stopped to this day. I think they're still going on. And so to that end, I don't know if releasing the videos would add to it or not. I would say, though, if I could, I find myself disagreeing with Mr. Nurmi again, and I just wanted to say to his last point was that I want to put on the record here, I'm not taking the position where I'm defending former Officer Chauvin. What I'm saying is, when you say in a position of, because I think he said it when he was actually standing upright. He said it when he was trying to get to the car, when they were trying to get him in. He said several times that he wasn't breathing. And I think I think a defense lawyer might suggest that his continuous conversation that he wasn't breathing in situations, or he couldn't breathe in situations where it was apparent that he was not in duress and able to breathe, undermine the credibility of what he says when he's on the ground. That's an argument that could be hit in that could be used in that situation. So that's what I would say.
Sir, respectfully, don't you think that? I said respectfully, don't you think that changes when his knee is on his neck?
Absolutely. I'm putting on the record, I'm not defending what Chauvin did, because I'll tell you, as a former police officer, there's no training that says we do that. Police officers aren't trained to use that maneuver, despite what anyone might tell you. That's something we're trained to do. And I know that at least I've been out of police work now, retired from police work for 12 years. So at least 10 years prior to that. So for the last 22 years, we've been talking about placing someone who's in handcuffs face down on their stomach. It creates a situation called positional asphyxia that we're all familiar with. And so just having him in that position was incorrect. That exacerbated by Mr. Chauvin's knee on his neck, and even possibly Mr. King's knee on his ribcage, wouldn't prevent him to be able to expand his breathing enough, and would likely cause exactly what happened here. So I'm not saying that Mr. Chauvin is correct at all. What I'm saying is that if that's my client and he's standing up and he's breathing and he's not in the car and he's breathing, he says he's not breathing and he's making that argument, I'm going to make the argument that claim is diminished when he's on the ground at that point. That's the point that I'm making.
I mean, I disagree, obviously. I feel like if he's saying that I can't breathe, even as they're getting him into the car, it's almost like all the officers are on notice. Someone's having an issue. He may be having a heart attack. He may be having maybe a panic. It's something, but there's clearly something that's health related, urgent enough that he's saying, I can't breathe. Something was happening to him, possibly prior to even being on the ground. And what happened on the ground with Officer Chauvin's knee on his neck probably exacerbated it and led him to his death.
I understand that you disagree, and that's okay. That's why we have trials. But I'm a criminal defense lawyer, and I'm looking at it from the perspective of what I would do if that was my client, where I would be. And that's just the perspective.
And I understand that, and I respect that. Obviously, I was a criminal defense attorney in this case. I would make the same arguments, and maybe they will carry weight with a jury. The issue is we're basically arguing based on what we have, and we're each taking a side, and we're all entitled to our every defendant, regardless of who it is. We all know they're entitled to a defense, the best defense possible, and we all believe in that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the foundation of our system. That's why we have you guys on every night. Awesome job. Rick King, Kirk Nurmi, Larry Yeretzian, thank you all so much. Please come back, and we'll probably bring all three of you back together if it's possible. Awesome job. Thanks again.
Sounds great, Vinny.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, that'll do it for tonight. We are here every night, Monday through Friday, 3 hours. No other network on television is doing what we're doing. This is the only place to get it, 8 to 11, Monday through Friday. Have a great night, as always, and don't forget to hug the kids.